I grew up on the River Thames and I always had a thing about boats. As a child I used to play in the river and on the river, and for a number of years I worked for a boat hire company renting out rowboats. Last year I took a narrowboat course because I thought I might like to try narrowboating. It was a good course and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And in the spring I hired a narrowboat for 3 days and went cruising on the Oxford Canal. A truly remarkable experience. So the next step was to go to the Crick Boat Show. Never been to a boat show before, but I thought it would be an interesting experience. So, what did a newbie think of the Crick Boat Show? Well, it was a big queue to get in, but it didn't take too long. The gates opened at 10 and I walked in. Well, the first thing I saw was the VIP marquee, and I thought, well, that's odd. Who are the VIPs? Well, it turns out they are the exhibitors, the speakers, and the volunteers at the boat show. So I entered the boat show, and it was a great day out. There were so many people there. I was quite surprised at how small the site was, but they packed a lot in. You could walk around looking at various exhibits and looking at various products and things connected with boating, and of course the stars of the show were the narrowboats and the wide beams that were down in the main basin of the marina, and there were some great boats on display down there. Anyway, the first place I headed off to was the sort of supplies tent, I guess you would call it. Here you could buy anything and everything narrowboating. You could buy seats, you could buy diesel stoves, you could buy sofas and chairs for your narrowboat. There was a really clever display on showing how you could have sort of modular furniture in your narrowboat where things slide around and can be reset depending upon what you were doing. I also came across a very expensive air conditioning unit for your narrowboat, and also a company that sold beds. I'd often wondered in videos that I'd looked at about narrowboating how people managed to get such weird and wonderful shaped beds. Now I know there's a company that makes them. Anybody want a triangular bed? There were sofas, and you could even buy dog life jackets at the show. There were several chandlery shops around where you could buy absolutely anything and everything you needed for your narrowboats, including a really colourful selection of different ropes. Fridges and freezers for your boat, yes, you could buy those and you could look at those at the show. And you could buy tiller pins to secure the tiller on your boat, all different shapes and sizes, wonderful designs. And I've always wondered where these sort of brass plaques come from that people put on their boats when they've completed a particular journey. And now I know. You can buy them at the Crick Boat Show. Want Wi-Fi on board? Learn about Wi-Fi. I learnt about propellers. And I saw some incredible machinery, some amazing diesel engines to go into narrowboats. This big blue one really caught my eye with the sheer colour of it and all the fan belts. And there were bow thrusters available. But it wasn't all about diesel engines. You could also learn about electric motors, and one thing that caught my eye was a hydrogen fuel cell to power a boat. The only question I have is, where would you get the hydrogen? Anyway, walking around there were lots to see, and as I said, electric motors were available as well. If you talk to a boater for any length of time, the conversation invariably turns to toilets. And this one at the show caught my eye. This is a Cinderella, and it's an incineration toilet. You do what you have to do into something that looks like a giant coffee filter, and then when you flush it, that filter drops into a lower compartment where you later incinerate it. This is an electrical powered one, but you can also have gas powered ones. The byproduct from this is water, carbon dioxide, and some ash. There are also traditional toilets on sale, such as porta potties and your standard pump outs and your cassette type toilets, and I found one small stand selling composting toilets. But the star of the show were the boats, and there were some great boats to be seen. Some of the boats were on land and you could walk around them, you could go inside and have a look and see what was on offer, and it was interesting to see the boats out of water, to sort of see them in their non-natural state, so you could appreciate what's on the hull and how the boat would actually look, because you generally only see the upper half. But the boats were great. And down in the basin, they had some fantastic boats. There were a lot of people down there looking at a lot of boats. There were some absolutely stunning examples to see, and most of them you could go on and have a look around. There were wide beams down there, which were basically floating palaces, and some absolutely beautiful narrowboats. The quality of the work inside these narrowboats and the finish was absolutely stunning. And there were staff on hand that you could ask questions about the boats, how it was made, cost, running costs, etc. And they were all really helpful, and it was great talking to them from the various different companies. The boats were stunning though. And this one I found particularly interesting because it had a traditional sort of sloping sides at the front over the bow, which had been made into a bedroom. Looked like a very, very cosy bedroom indeed. But as I said, there were staff on hand. You could ask questions about the boats and they were really helpful. But the boats were stunning. I mean, the quality of the finish and the paintwork was amazing. And I particularly like this on the side of one of the boats. Doing what you like is freedom. Liking what you do is happiness. A good sentiment. But it was great to see all the narrowboats, and not all of them were finished. You could even look around what they call a sailaway, which is a boat that's been built and the inside has been prepared, ready to be fitted out as you want. As I was looking at all the nice shiny new narrowboats across the way, I spotted some vintage narrowboats, and these were amazing. These were big beasts. These were the original narrowboats of the canals of the UK. And when you got up close, you realised that these boats were really built for shifting cargo. The back cabin, the boatsman cabin, was incredibly small. How somebody lived in there and raised a family in there, I don't know. The space was minute. Besides the narrowboats, there were various craft areas. You could go and buy hats to keep the sun off you when you're boating. And there were all kinds of different designs of hats. The things that were being shown were quite amazing. And there was also traditional things such as sign writing. In fact, in one corner I found a class going on of traditional sign writing and painting, and the work was amazing. It was great to watch people having a go and to look at some of the things that the canal boat artists could actually produce. Truly, truly remarkable pieces of work. And of course, there was gin and fudge and food and all kinds of different things available. There was also a food court area that you could go to, and they sold pretty much any type of food that you were after. There were pizzas, there was fish and chips, and I stopped by the pizza company and had a pretty good pizza for my lunch with a can of Fanta. And there were also pies and pasties and whatever you wanted. Next to the food area was the beer tent, which was very, very popular. A lot of people sitting around, chatting, catching up, enjoying the day, and trying some of the beers that were on sale. The show was also a great place for people watching. There were a lot of people there enjoying a day out in the sunshine, sampling the food and just having a good time. And the stall holders were really friendly and great to talk to, and of course I had to stop and have an ice cream. On such a sunny day it would be rude not to have an ice cream. But the star of the show were the boats. Sitting down by the boat area, just looking at the boats, looking at the people, was a great way to sit and enjoy my ice cream. Just watching the people walking around, enjoying the show, looking at boats, catching up and chatting. And one thing I did notice at the show was there was a lot of dogs around. I was surprised at the number of dogs. I go to quite a few country shows and I see a lot of dogs there, but at the boat show there was a surprising number. Dogs and narrowboats seemed to go together. Some of the dogs were less than impressed with what was going on, and this particular dog didn't really seem to enjoy a talk given by Fran and Rich, who run a YouTube narrowboat site, but some of them did seem happy to listen to what was going on. But overall, it was a great show. I had a great day out, thoroughly enjoyed it, and learnt a lot. I'll be back. Bye for now.